Hey, hi, hello, guys. Welcome to the Unofficial Astrology Podcast. I'm your host, Mia Marie, and I'm continuing on in our four-part series through each of the four elements as it relates to astrology. So, my overall philosophy is that the four elements show up in our day-to-day life every single day. Every action that we do, every behavior that we embody is motivated by us trying to achieve a specific goal related to a specific element. And ideally, these four elements operate like tires on a car, right? There are four elements, there are four tires. We want to make sure that there is enough life, that there is enough volume, that there is enough air in all four tires so we can get to where we need to go. If one of the elements or two of the elements are lacking in our lives, we're probably not going anywhere, and we're definitely not going far. So, without further ado, let's talk about air. Air in astrology is our thinking function. It represents consciousness, the gift of reason, our ability to learn. It's the art of communication. All of these things fall under the umbrella of air tasks and strengths. So air represents our ability to detach from the ego and to focus on our environment and our current situations. And this is what differentiates humans from the animal kingdom, is that we have a prefrontal cortex. We have the ability to think and act before we speak. And unlike the other zodiac signs, none of the air signs are symbolized by animals. Gemini and Aquarius are represented by humans, and Libra is actually so detached that it's represented by the scales. And the energy is kind of all working towards the blessing of innovation through pure thought. Air energy manifests itself in the 3D world in three different ways: Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. These are all positively oriented signs, which means they are more masculine in their quality and extroverted by nature. There are a couple fears with these signs. So Gemini fears being out of the loop or being abandoned. Libra fears making the wrong decision, and Aquarius fears losing their individuality. Physically, in your life, when you are embodying too much air energy, you begin to experience analysis paralysis. It's this excessive intellectualizing that leads us to live in our mind palace. It may be because we just love the idea of thinking, but when there is too much air, we know because the body starts to respond. Our nervous system feels jittery or anxious. It's hard for us to slow down. It's overreactive and extremely sensitive to the environment. And so, what you can see when there's too much air is that your physical body is exhausted as a consequence of your mind not being able to rest. Personally, I can say that it may be hard to abandon this mindset because it feels like you're constantly supporting the development of this kind of conceptual genius. And I think you see this in people who are extremely successful, at least in the 3D world. Their mind just never stops. They are idea machines. And you kind of dance that fine line when there's too much air of being a genius or being an outlaw. On the other hand, not enough air results in an inability to detach oneself from a situation and to be objective. And this can create learning difficulties or issues with communication, as well as issues with socializing. Air deficient people rarely see this as an issue, though. Like super water dominant people, it's just like the mind does not know what it doesn't know. And so there's a sense of superficiality to this person, and an inherent lack in one's ability to conceptualize the needs and limitations of the body. Evolved air in our day-to-day life is when we know when to talk and we know when to listen. Air energy has this wealth of knowledge and can spot the appropriate time to impart it to the listener. Air is the teacher inside of us, and it's gifted with speaking to things that are considered unspeakable. Air at its absolute best has mastered how to quiet the mind and meditate. It's spacious and gracious, and at the same time inclusive. When I talk about air with clients, speaking, communicating, I call it air conditioning. We want the air inside of our system to be conditioned versus polluted, right? If we're not cleaning out the area, it becomes inhabitable. It's like we can't breathe. And so conditioned air to me means that we are communicating what we need. We are uplifting ourselves and other people. It's kind of like we're standing, again, as this eternal teacher who recognizes when there is a ready and willing student when they present themselves to us. Conditioned air also flows. So there are many ways to communicate. You don't always have to actually use your voice. You can meditate, journal. If you wanted to, you can talk to a therapist. If you're extremely personal like me and refuse to document emotions, I actually open my computer and I'll turn on, the camera app photo booth, and I will record sessions of me just talking out all the things that I'm working through. And lastly, conditioned air observes. It sees the mind and the mind's thoughts, but chooses not to become them. It listens to the stories that we tell ourselves about life, about love, and then goes, I wonder if this piece of information is outdated. Time to reassess. But when the air inside of our system is polluted, we kind of whirl. We talk in circles. We talk all day, but ultimately we talk about nothing. It blows. It uses words and theories to break hearts rather than to soften and open them. Polluted air is a whisper. It is this refusal or ambivalence to speak. And lastly, polluted air suffocates. It feels as if there is no room to breathe. There is this heavy weight on our chest, and it's because it's swirling. Our heart is swirling with the whirls of intellect. It's not grounded. We all know that there are 3 air signs, but we don't always recognize that each air sign represents a developmental phase of air. Each air sign has a specific agenda, motive, existence, and function. And so the journey of air begins with Gemini. And this is the human instinct to be curious and to learn, to ask questions, and to pursue answers, but for oneself and oneself only. Gemini thinks, what do I know? What can I share? How can I expand on this piece of information and use it to expand my reality? How can I impact the people around me through the things that I have to teach? And then Libra goes, okay, so Gemini knows all of these things, but what do you know? It recognizes the other. It takes Gemini's curiosity and aims it towards other people. It's programmed to seek out others who could help them uncover truths that are too big to be held by one soul. And Libra energy is about companionship. The last developmental phase and expression of air is Aquarius. And this is the most evolved air sign. And it takes all of the information given, personal and social, and directs its attention to how the data affects the universe. Aquarius questions, how can we be better now that we have this information? When I use the word evolved, it can kind of create this hierarchy between the 3, as if Aquarius is at the top and Gemini is at the bottom. I personally like to distance myself from this train of thought. I don't think people are better than others, but I do think that we have different perspectives, and it's important to go into our personal relationships and business relationships, or even just out in the world, and start taking note of where people are speaking from and potentially what their agenda is. That feels like a very airy piece of information to provide during this podcast. But yes, this is the evolution of air. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find all of this information and more in my book, Chaos and Cosmos, the handbook for the practicing astrologist. It is available on Amazon now. And if you would like to work one-on-one with me, you can find me at wellandrising.com. Do be sure to like, comment, and subscribe and share. Every little bit that you do helps. Until next time, toodles.